Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Principals Program. I'm Ron Strumensky, principal of Wakefield High School. It's good to have you with us once again. I have a very special guest in our WHS studio today, a lady that in this part of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I think our television folks don't get an opportunity to see, but you surely are going to have an opportunity to meet Nadja Vani. Nadja, welcome to Wakefield High School.
Well, Ron, I have to tell you, I have been impressed to the nth degree with all the remarkable things you've shown me here at Wakefield High School. It really renews my effort to get back on School Talk, my show, and talk more about the realities of school. This is a wonderful high school.
Nadja Vani says to get back on her television program because she is the host and producer of a PBS program called School Talk, and we're going to get to know a little about that and a lot about Nadja and talk some education here today. But Nadja is a career educator. I have known her for many years as an outstanding instructor who now is in the world of television. How did you get into School Talk?
Well, Ron, actually it grew out of what you have, the same concern for kids. Bill Skitt, the member principal,
Sure.
and myself were working in an elementary school, and it was time for us to do kindergarten registration and orientation. And I said, gosh, Bill, this is some years back. Why don't we use public access? The parents only come out for this one meeting. We've got to find a way to communicate, which you're doing so well, having a studio right here in your high school. And so I looked into public access, about 11 years ago now, and found out that people would come and talk with me. You would be amazed. In the 300 shows I've done, we have talked to Senators Kennedy and Kerry and Barney Frank, and we went into Washington at the invitation of Senators Pell and Chafee, and we actually produced a show, a teacher going into, I felt like Lucille Ball. What am I doing here? I have no political agenda. And we went into Washington, interviewed them in the United States Senate in the basement. And I tell you all this not to be self-congratulatory, but simply to say, sometimes parents and teachers say, what can we do? Well, I didn't know what to do either, and that's how I got into television. It's a wonderful medium for parents, students, for teachers, just by having a mission.
There's no question about that. Now, your show is it, a 30-minute show?
It's a half-hour talk show. It does have a PSA about education in the middle, and the guests who come on, as I say, all have some very important things to say. We're hoping maybe your community will write to Channel 2. The Commissioner of Education, Antonucci, and the then Secretary of Ed, Piedad Robertson, wrote a letter to Mr. Becton, I should tell you, saying that we need to have a talk show about education. So maybe if a few of your parents say, we need to have something like the Principals Talk or something on Channel 2, maybe we'll get somewhere.
Nadja, you have a wide variety of people that you interview on your show, and it's every week, and it's been going on for over 10 years now. What's the most exciting show you've ever done on education? And that's a lot of shows. I was thinking back to when I was doing talk. I had done over 1,500 talk shows, which staggers the imagination
and you
to
were
think
great.
about.
You were good, too. I listened. You were good.
But as you think about the shows you've done on education, who was the most exciting guest you ever had on?
Well, exciting show and exciting guest. The most exciting show, of course, was when we went to Washington and were treated like ambassadors, and to see a lowly teacher, because teachers don't have respect in this community, in this culture like they do, say, in Japan and other places. So that was my most exciting show, to be ushered into the Senate and treated like a dignitary just because we were interviewing senators. That was the most exciting show.
Did you tape shows there?
Yes, in the Senate studio.
Right in the Senate studio.
In the United States Senate. It was really, they were lined up. I'm your cameraman, and the young people who are here today, including John and Julie and Sandy and all the rest of them here, they were lined up doing just what they're doing. And so I hope someday we'll see some of your students maybe in the Senate studio. That was the most exciting show. But the most exciting guest, that's hard to say because there have just been so many. And rather than citing some of the big names, and there have been, we even did Attorney General Harshbarger. We've done a lot of wonderful people who are very caring and concerned. But just recently, I did a show, this may shock you or surprise you, but with the 10-Point Coalition. They're a group of mainly clergymen that have now brought in the community in the inner cities of Boston, the inner city of Boston. They have a 10-point coalition to reach out in various ways to clean up the streets, to get kids off of drugs, and to help restore the family life within those families. So that did touch me because my mission for being here is to teach and help all people, whether you're a up-and-coming, a yuppie and, rising professional, or if you're someone in the ghetto. Education is important to everyone. So that probably is one of my most recent exciting shows in itself, the people that came on.
If you were doing this show at the start of your teaching career, the odds are we wouldn't be talking about I watched your show last week, and you were talking about violence with Dr. Gellis from the University of Rhode Island.
Yes.
And we have to be concerned in public education now, not only with the pedagogy, the teaching of these things. We need to be concerned about the domestic violence that kids are subjected to at home, the drugs, the alcohol. Things have changed.
In fact, that is very true. And one of the threads that Dr. Gellis identified in that show that was common to almost all the kids that get involved in violence is the absence of a father in the home, which is incredible. But that's part of this whole, the feminist movement, the open sex, the whole experimentation in our culture. And I shouldn't editorialize here, but I think the teachers should stop getting bashed, and the school shouldn't be bashed, and I'm not in there anymore.
Right.
But from the outside, for what our culture has done to our kids, because as a friend of mine wrote, the school buses keep coming. So with all the horrible things happening in culture, the kids are still coming in, and the schools are dealing with it.
But there's an expectation that all of those things are going to be dealt with by the schools.
Well, this is precisely what I'm saying. It has to become a community, a cultural thing. Actually, I was speaking with Gary Marks. He happens to be the assistant to the president of the American Association of School Administrators. They're located in the Washington area. They're having a big conference this coming weekend. And the thing that he focused on, the point that he really focused on, was the fact that we need community involvement. And you hear those words, and does it mean helping with the Boy Scouts? Yes. Does it mean teaching Sunday school? Yes. Does it mean helping in a nursing home? Yes. But the schools themselves are beginning to need that community involvement, and not just sending kids out to do good deeds. That's very important. But also the community to take a real interest. Not just, did you get an A or a B? All right, I got to go see your teacher because you didn't do well. That's good. That's minimum. Parental involvement.
Got to go beyond the parental open house.
Exactly.
Three times a year.
Parents are sick of just baking cookies. In fact, I read a bumper sticker that said, why don't we give the schools all the money they need and let the Navy go have a bake sale?
I love it. Isn't that
great?
Interesting?
The parents are saying, let's put our money where our mouth is. The president's talking about it's a priority. Everyone gives lip service to it. But when it comes down to our kids, I don't see that people make that a priority. Ron, yours
but
and
if
mine.
you ask people and you say to them, what is the most important thing in your life? People with children, they will say, my children are the most important. Their safety, number one. Yes. They want safe schools, as well they should. But number two is the quality of the education that kids are receiving.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting because a national poll showed exactly that. They surveyed a number of people coming from the polls. It wasn't a large sample, maybe 500 people. But they asked them, what is the most important issue to you personally? Number one, tying for number one, was health care and education. And that was way above. Way down at the bottom was balancing the budget and the corruption in politics. That was like number 6 or 5 out of 6 and 7. And I'm always amazed that our media pays more attention to the same political issues over and over, except for people like your show. You used to talk about a lot of educational issues. So I'm hoping that we'll have more communication about education.
But talking about political corruption is much more exciting. We'll draw a much larger audience than a show talking about education any day of the week.
Ron, I hope I'm not going to be censured here. You might have to bleep this out. But I said to someone, I do talk show on education. It's exciting to me. It's important to me. The guests I have on are of the highest caliber. I mean, somebody that knows everything about education can learn from them. In fact, we have the School Talk video libraries for teachers to use for discussion. Someone who's on welfare, feeding her baby with a bottle, not knowing what to do, she can get something because some of the shows deal with readiness and early reading and early preparation. And yet, to finding funding for a kind of show we're talking about, I said, if I took off my clothes and said I'm going to dance around for a half hour, I could get all kinds of funding for my show.
We started out by talking about, the changes in society. I don't know if that's any change. I think people, you talk about staying away from sensationalism in your shows. When you put out your flyers on your show, you deal right up front with the issues. You're not looking for sensationalism, but people are.
Precisely. And
they're looking for it in their movies, and they're looking for it in their politics.
And there's nothing wrong with people having entertainment. Our culture is really hung up on entertaining themselves, and there are a lot of reasons for that, I'm sure. But there does come a time with this, to me I call it a schizophrenia. On one hand, we say in education, this is the most important thing, and then nobody reads that part of the paper, this documentation. They want more on education, but people don't read that section. People want more attention to it, but they don't want to put their money there or their time there. So we have kind of this schizophrenia, and in between, we're so busy entertaining ourselves that sometimes our kids do get lost, and they're learning the wrong models. If you go to Japan or Germany, in Germany, there's an ethos. Learning matters. In Japan, when they meet a teacher, they bow very low, because how low you bow shows the respect. In this culture, if I say I'm doing television, everyone wants to talk to me. If I say I'm teaching first grade, no one cares.
It's funny you say that, because for all the years I did a talk show, when I was introduced socially, the first thing they would say is, this is Ron Skrominski. He's a talk show host.
Yes.
Not he's an educator for his whole life. But the more important thing was that I did a talk show.
Now, how do you feel about it? Do you think it's correct, that priority?
When they said that, I always used to say, I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that on the side. But my life is as an educator. But to other people, it's the excitement of it, it's the glory of television and radio and things of that nature in our society, and the professional athlete. Mm-hmm. The focus is on that kind of thing.
And we're building, obviously, when that happens, we're building a culture that our children now, we criticize them. What's wrong with these kids? They don't want to be serious about their homework. Well, Mom, Dad, Grandma, we've been feeding them all this other stuff, telling them it's important to be sexy, it's important to have a car, it's important to look great, it's important to wear designer clothes. Nobody's out there saying it's important to achieve. I love the front of Wakefield School. When you walk in the door, right overhead it says, academic achievement, our #1 goal. Here, and I watched your kids walking through the hall. Nobody was fighting. No one was on the floor doing some ugly sexual thing. Nobody was passing out condoms. This is what you hear in the media. Wakefield High School, they're all attractive young people moving through the halls, going into their classes, sitting at computers. And this is what the world needs to hear about, that there are wonderful young people.
That doesn't make good stories. What makes good stories is the violence, the vandalism, and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be what...
To tell you the truth, this would make story because we hear so much of the opposite. You say, this is really what's going on in schools? No one would believe it.
Well, when I used to tell kids that, you know, adults who are outside of education, I'd say, well, you've got 1,000 students in one place. They must be hanging from the chandeliers. It's because of those stories that are so prominent, the magazine shows that focus on teenagers, and they're the small minority. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate.
Well, I think at least you and I have picked up the ball, and we're doing something about it. And I congratulate you, and I hope your program here, I think it's going to grow. You said you're getting new cameras.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In fact, we're kind of excited that, you know, our television studio, the number of students who are involved and the interest that students have shown is expanding. So we're very excited about it. And I know that that's happening all over the country. And we know how exciting television is. And we want the young people to share that excitement and get out there and be part of, as we said, communication, which is really what it's all about.
Well, Ron, it was a great loss to Attleboro, where we both taught, to lose you to Wakefield. But I just want to compliment you. I've seen the computer rooms and the instructional area for television and the nursery school and the culinary arts, all going on within the context of academic achievement. And these young people have, they're reaching for the stars, and I think they're going to get them because they have a star at the helm.
Oh, I'm sure you're nice to say
that. No, you
that.
deserve it.
What do you have coming up on your next couple of shows? Quickly, we're almost out of time. What are you?
Well, this very week I will be interviewing the guru of self-esteem. He was formerly the head of McLean Hospital. He's written many books, authored many books. He speaks all over the country. He's the keynote speaker this year for the National Association for Learning Disabilities. He's a wonderful man, and I can give you a tape so you can show it to the Wakefield people on your channel if you'd like it.
Wouldn't that be neat to get some of your shows, even we could show, is that possible?
Absolutely.
That we could have some of your shows air on our station?
Pick out the ones you want, and then you could have your own discussion on the topic right after it on your 15-minute show.
Gotcha. Listen, we're out of time. Always a pleasure
Thank you.
to see you. Best of luck in your future programming and all of your endeavors. Naja Vani, host and producer of School Talk, has been my guest today. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you again real soon. Bye now.